have to have less than 10 by 1 broadband. So 10 down, 1 up. They have to have less than 10 by 1. And number 2, it has to meet the cost model. So if it's too high, they're what's called an extreme high cost location. They're in a separate, we'll talk about them in a second. They're in a separate kind of a bucket. If they're too low, so think downtown Helena, there may be pockets, and I know there are pockets of locations that can only get 1.5, but because of the competitive nature of Charter and Montana Internet and other providers in the area, they're a low cost and they're thrown out also. So there's this sweet spot of eligible locations, and if you go to the FCC's map, fcc.gov, you can go to the CAF2 website and you can basically pull up a map that shows, number 1, who accepted CAF funding, number 2, what the CAF funding eligible areas look like. Those will be in green. So the extreme high cost locations, those are the locations that have been set aside, and we're told that there's a special auction that's supposed to take place for these high cost, extreme high cost locations that will have X amount of dollars funded from the FCC to build to these extreme high cost locations. Now, it's been 3 years since the adoption of the CAF2 program with no update to that. Some of that could be, just the changes in the FCC, changes in the administration. Nothing has been decided on what to do with those extreme high cost locations. There are a lot of extreme high cost locations in the state of Montana. There are also a lot of eligible locations in the state of Montana too. Now here's the gotcha of Connect America Fund. When we accept Connect America Fund, basically it's the money that comes from our subscribers on their dial tone bill. We received approximately $90 million for the 6-year period. In order to avoid penalties and fines, we have to hit certain benchmarks and we have to hit certain regulations that the FCC has laid down. Number 1, by the end of 2017, we are required to hit 40% of our required locations. Our required locations in the state of Montana are 33,638.
And that's individual subscribers.
Individual households. So the Connect America Fund, that program is designed specifically for consumers, not business. So we have to have 40% of that by the end of 2017. So as an engineer and as a planner, we have to find those locations that are eligible locations with dense population. Those are the locations we go after. And I have on my computer lists and lists and lists of people interested in getting Connect America Fund dollars, but there's 20 here, there's 15 here, there's 10 here, and it would take hundreds of thousands of dollars to build out to them. We'd run out of money way before we hit the number that we needed to get to. At the end of the 6-year period, if we do not hit that 33,638, we are fined 10% of the cost of the dollars that we accepted, $9 million. It's significant. And they don't take that out of what we accepted. We pay that back. So it's a gamble. There are some states in our footprint that we did not accept Connect America Fund because of 2 reasons. Number 1, the population was just not there to hit that, and there wasn't enough money to make it worthwhile. One of the states closest to us that we did not accept Connect America Fund was Wyoming, because they're so spread out, which means the cost of the build would be so high, and the populations are so low. It would have cost us way more money to accept it than if we would have just taken the money. It's not like we take the money, we spend it, and we're done. We would have had to avoid fines, spent a lot of our own funding to make that happen. So I say all that was saying this. When we look at the state, we have to, the minimum speeds that we can offer are the 10 by 1. That is what an eligible household is, and it has to be in the green area. We got to get to that 33,638. We've got to find those dense areas. We've got to find that low-hanging fruit. And the perfect example of where we moved a location up is Darby. And the reason why we moved Darby up is a couple in the community left over $1 million, $3 million to the community to do with as they wished, just as a gift. they met for over a year and they said, what do we do with this money? And they decided that they were gonna spend $1 million to bring fiber optic cable from Hamilton, 17.5 miles to Darby. Before that, central office out of that location was served by a microwave. So if you remember the dial-up days, the best that we could offer in that community was 256K. It was basically dial-up speeds. So they came to us and they actually put an RFP out and they said, okay, we want to do, 1 gig to the Darby school, go. And there was about 6 or 7 that had put had responded to the RFP. And at the end of the day, we ended up winning the RFP. We won the contract. Well, the Connect America Fund that we had scheduled for Darby, the outlying areas of Darby, was approximately 2020 or 2021. It was several years out. It was at the end of our project. And being scheduled that far out, there's a possibility that's going to fall off the map. It could be swapped out for another area that maybe is a better location with cheaper cheaper to build to that location. So we built the fiber to Darby. Well, with that, now that we have the fiber to the central office in Darby, is a piece of cake for us to start deploying at a very much lower cost. As Jason mentioned, it was extremely lower than what we had originally planned. So let's go ahead and pick up all that low-hanging fruit. That's the low-hanging fruit we're talking about. So the investment by the community, that was huge. And that not only upgraded the speed from 256 in town to 12 meg, they can now get 12 meg and 20 meg out of the central office right there at Darby. We can't count any of those households in the Darby community themselves as CAF units. They're not in the eligible area. They're in the too low of the cost area. But it allowed us to build the outer ring in the outside areas going, what would it be, south and north, towards Sula and then back towards the Hamilton area. So we were able to do that. So that's a perfect example of being able to move those locations up. And it's doesn't happen very often that you get a gift of that nature, dropped in your lap for that purpose. I think we eventually would have gone there with fiber optics, but it certainly wouldn't have been this year. We just turned that up
About
2 months ago.
yeah.
2 months ago. So anyway, that's the longer version of Connect America Fund. We're pretty well handcuffed to what the FCC says we can and can't do with it.
So the answer is no, probably not gonna see the service we need. I'm talking in terms of the RV park up there being able to get a high speed so that they can have it for their business, as well as people that may wanna move here that wanna telecommute to work. That's becoming a big deal. They need the bandwidth and the phone, and then they're working out of their homes. But that's not available, and it sounds like what we're gonna have from CenturyLink is available here in town, but if we're outside of town, we're not going there anywhere fast. Years away yet. So, I mean,
That's why we're so interested. Are you going to participate with our WISPs in the
So
area?
so same thing as the cell phone companies, they become our customers.
Right.
If we're not willing to build those locations and they're willing to come in, we'll sell them the backhaul. They basically become our customer and you're their customer. And we're happy to do that. I mean, at the end of the day, covering as much, regardless of how it gets done, covering as much area as possible is important. And we are all for that.
So the CAF may give us some additional backbone into the areas. It's not going to go 4 or 5 miles up a dirt road, a county dirt road.
It might.
It might.
Or it might not.
Or it might not. And the
what we're
plans
asking-
change a lot. I mean, we would have a hard time sitting here telling you,
That's
yes,
why.
we are planning
That's
to go
why.
there.
Frankly, that's why I'm reluctant to say that, because I don't want to commit. Me personally, I do not want to commit to you and say, "Oh yeah, we're building there," and then the organization at large say, "Oh well, we're going to take some of that funds and move it over to there." So,
But again, that's why we're asking, if you can't, we want to make sure that some of that bandwidth can be provided to our.
It absolutely would be.
so
yes.
really the whole impetus that's driving this existing build, the build that we're talking about today, is a WISP.
Okay.
So just the WISP is going to be doing exactly what John said. They're going to be buying a big pipe from us, and I believe that based on their business model, they'll be able to do a lot of different things, like maybe provide the RV park with a wireless shot from
So
where we interconnect with them.
this is part of that special option. Our WISP can actually try to buy that last mile.
That hasn't been determined yet.
Right,
That's
okay.
still hung up at the FCC level. And frankly, as many extreme high cost locations as there are in the country, there's not that much available funding from the FCC for those. But they will go to an auction process at some point. We just don't know when that is. And we've been curious because we've had several communities where we've sat down with them. We frankly told them, guys, we are never coming here. It would cost $1 million to serve 20 people. That nobody in this room will be alive when we get our return on that investment. Nobody would make that business decision here in this room. So
Yeah, Fairview, Montana is a perfect example of that. We have a remote site north of Fairview, almost. I mean, you just got to drive a few miles to get to North Dakota border. It's $1.3 million to reach 13 customers. That's still on the list. I mean, it's still on the list of things to do. But do I think that that's a good business decision? Absolutely not. I mean, you're talking, like I said, $30 to $50 at the most for that customer. 13 customers. I mean, you'll never, ever, ever, ever make that money back. So
here's where we want to help. And Adam just passed a small list of customers that were interested in faster bandwidth, breaking those down and saying, okay, what creatively can we do right now to maybe facilitate, taking care of those business customers. Some of the really far on, when you start getting up to the pass, going out of town towards White Sulphur Creek, that's going to be dicey. But here in town where we do have the opportunity, maybe we can do something, maybe we can offer, say, listen, we'll get you this if you guys are willing to maybe put up some of the build cost or something of that nature. But yeah, however it gets done, whether we work one-on-one with each individual business or a WISP comes in and, we're able to provide them the bandwidth, we don't care. We really don't. We're not, what we're saying is we're not gonna inhibit someone else
Right.
from serving the community.
Right.
That's important, so.
Any more questions?
Thank you
Thank
very
you for
much.
taking your time
Yes.
and presenting this to everybody here.
Jason, I appreciate the strong yes. Gives
Yeah.
us something to sink our teeth into.
yeah,
And just to clarify, WISP, that would be Montana Internet.
Wireless Internet Service Provider is
yeah.
what it stands for.
yeah,
All
So
right.
And-
we have a lot of acronyms in our business.
yeah. It's like the
I thought I was tracking, but I wanted to make sure.
You're right.
I think you guys are familiar with Montana Internet, and I just don't know that it's really not. It's probably not appropriate to talk about the relationship that we're going into with those guys. So,
Okay.
just know that there's going to be a relationship there that's going to maybe potentially address some of the issues in the short term for sure. So.
And in the short term, we know that if there is something that addresses the bigger businesses, that the freeway does start moving more
We
quickly.
want to keep that
Customers.
conversation going because we do have that list and we did talk with you guys, a little while back, and now that we know what those are, identifying what the challenges are to get the bandwidth needed to those locations, we may be able to do some things now.
Yeah.
Okay,
We just need to tackle that, so.
Yeah.
fantastic.
Yep. All right.
Thank you both.
Yep.
Thank
thanks.
you.
John?
V-E-M-I-S.
And Jason's last name?
Moohart, M-O-O-T-H-A-R-T.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes.
Comes here.
Okay.
Oh, we're gonna Wednesday? I've seen through this today, but I guess it's. So. There's
No, I did mention that Michelle asked us to address a couple of things, and I did also want to share with you some of the information from the juvenile detention meeting.
Back to the board, I move the paperwork.
Right. Debbie, do you have a copy of this memo with Brian from 2011? I can go make you a quick copy.
It's in the file upstairs.
All right, do you want a copy for our discussion or just take notes?
Take notes.
Okay.
So it sounds to me like Century League is coming in here. Must be.
They're already here.
Already started.
So what say you, Mr. Chair?
Okay, what did you have to bring up?
Following up on our discussion with Michelle this morning.
Well, I guess until she was gonna check on some different things there, until then, we do have this copy of this memo now that she kept referring to.
Right, she wanted us to discuss it today, and since you're chair, I'm gonna let you lead that.
What?
We had a call with Michelle Bligery today,
What
this
did
morning
you
at 9
say?
o'clock. You're the chair.
They're just outside there.
She instructed you to have a discussion, a couple of points, on this memo. I got you a copy
Yeah, okay.
right before the meeting.
Okay,
All right.
so what part of it do you wanna talk about? I don't know if there's that much more
Debbie.
until she finds out the information she was going to.
What we have, this memo that we were just talking about, there's a couple of things on it. The, and I'm just gonna talk general, but the employees will receive 4 hours of regular time for each day of on-call service. That is only if they're called. There's no on-call pay, there's no pay for being on-call,
They rotate every weekend and they get the 4 hours,
period. No
Period.
time and a half, no comp,
just 4 hours.
right,
It goes
only
into
if they're
comp.
called.
Well, they rotate, so they put 4 hours down Saturday, Sunday, and they rotate their shifts.
Okay, we'll need to address
So
that.
That's was the understanding, we get it, whether we're called out for 10 minutes, or we go and we work the whole entire time.
And that we agree with, that was the intent, if they're not called, if there's not a need.
And they rotate, so it's just one of them. It used to be both of them or somebody, they didn't know, so they put this to make it a little clearer.
Okay, we will, have to get together and clarify this, I'll send Michelle an email and just let her know about that. And then, it shouldn't be going automatically, I think there's some confusion that they're getting time and a half, comp time for that?
I think
Is there
they think
anything
it's
there?
time and a half, but we just put the 4 hours as 4 hours.
Okay, all right,
We kind of treat it, it's kind of like the call out, we don't treat it the same as their regular 40 hours because in our opinion, there's probably been some questions, it's not being used properly. So we made changes to the time card so that comp time on that weekend is it. They couldn't use it, leave early to try to cut their hours down on the weekend because there was just too many things that it didn't look right, didn't set right.
No, all right, thank you.
So we kind of have been trying to watch that, and it just
Probably why it came up.
keeps getting more and more difficult to monitor, to watch. One interpretation, I just found out recently that now if they go to the transfer station, they get more time. Never heard that before.
Okay,
Never been an issue. Was all my understanding from when that memo was given, that it's any work they do for solid waste, what's going to all the canister sites, just one, to the transfer station to clean up around the gate. It was to make it easier so that Monday morning, they didn't get met with piles of trash outside the gates and overflows at the canisters. It made it easier for them to do their jobs. And with 3 of them, it made it easier then to rotate that duty instead of the same persons doing it every weekend.
sure, and this was developed when we had 2 people and they were both acquiring a lot of overtime and comp time because they couldn't do the job in just the time
Came to the
allotted.
board, and it's just kind of been what we've been doing the last 5-6 years.
All right, thank you, appreciate that. The only other thing I have, well, not the only other thing, I have a letter here, and I'm sorry Paul left, because this was an issue that we talked about last year, but the county attorney is wanting either a contract deputy or a deputy county attorney. When we talked about the issue of everything coming to a halt that has anything to do with the county attorney's job, civil, criminal, whatever, when he's gone, and that's essentially a quarter of the year, 3 to 4 weeks every 4 months. Well, we can't just stop everything when he's gone. So one of the things we grappled with a year ago was, if he wants us to pursue this, can this person answer to the commission and not just to the county attorney? Of course, the county attorney always has final say. In our discussion with Corey last week, he said that was illegal. That's not true. And we did go back and forth on that. Brian Hopkins is the chief legal counsel for Montana Association of Counties, and Michelle Pwiggery is our HR consultant, also an attorney, not practicing in the state of Montana. But she did state that Brian Hopkins and I discussed this issue in length. The statutes support the fact that the commissioners can hire an attorney to advise them if you choose. And then it goes on into more detail. That was a 50% of full-time position, county attorney, just 6 years ago. It is really hard for me to jump to needing another attorney. But if you guys are going to discuss that, I think you need to have the facts, that the statutes support the fact that the commissioners can hire an attorney to advise them if you choose. So I just want that as part of the record. And then the last thing to bring up, to update you guys on, is we are part of a regional governing board actually for the Juvenile Detention Center that's in Great Falls. And the Board of Crime Control has been dismantled by our legislature. We saw the first effect of that just last Thursday. There was a grant that paid counties 50% of the daily rate to send a kid to juvenile detention. That's now gone. The entire cost will be borne by the counties. I don't know if you guys discussed this in the working groups between the city and the county, Mike, but regardless if a kid lives in the city or the county, that will be borne by the county. Debbie, we'll have to budget for
Big
that.
time.
Big time. One county had a bill last year with their 50% of $149,000. What has happened is because of silos, each group having their own silo they care about and not really communicating outside of those silos, we have an issue now in this state. It's not just our region, it's all over the state, but you've got your judge, you've got your defense attorney, and you've got your county attorney. And any one of those pieces can say, well, we didn't get our evaluation done, let's go ahead and meet on this later. We've got John Wright, for example, who's gonna be 6 months before being found guilty of 7 felonies and being charged for those 7 felonies. The average time that a kid sits in juvenile detention before even seeing a judge for the first time is 41 days. That's about 10 grand for a county for that one kid. So, that's the reality of where we're at. That's step 1. Any questions? All right.
So you'll have numbers to get with me, or a number I can call to get kind of numbers?
I will give
What we
you
had last year?
these reports. Yeah. So, I'll give them to Ann for now. And, yeah, no good news at this point. Is Jessica still here? No. Okay. I will share one other thing. This is just because it has me baffled. This is the Constitution for the state of Montana. And Section 8 is actually the right to participate. The public has the right to expect governmental agencies to afford such reasonable opportunity for citizen participation in the operation of the agencies prior to final decision as may be provided by law. At no time did our legislature allow for any participation whatsoever in the dismantling of the Montana Board of Crime Control. The cost to the state is $1.5 million. What the state has lost, for starters, is $30 million in prevention of crime, prevention of elder abuse, educational services, justice services, victim witness advocates, law enforcement services. If you count the matches that different agencies and counties paid into for those grants, we're looking at a hit to the state of about $87 million. So, this county is going to have to put its head together. All counties are going to have to put their heads together, as will a number of agencies that serve at-risk youth, elders. So, just a little commentary.
Okay. Be anything else in? Adjourn at 12:05.
And since we're adjourned, I'm going to ask that we follow open meeting laws, since I just took on the Constitution and our legislature, and frankly, we need to be posting our meetings. That's legal requirements with open meeting laws. And it's the resolution we just signed, just 2 weeks ago. So, I want to do it not in the minutes, so that can be corrected.
Yeah, supposed to be sent to the,
They're not posted, Franklin. By law, they need to be posted in the basement, bulletin board, the main floor bulletin board, and the clerk and recorder's office. This meeting and last week's meeting and the week meeting before that, none of that has been done.
I just was talking to Michelle and Ann, she talked to you that she was having some trouble with for some reason the computer wasn't getting you the agenda, didn't she? But she's got that taken care of now.
That is taken care of. It's not my responsibility to post them.
No, it is the
Okay.
one that comes to the clerk and recorder's office.